I've just watched that video back and I've realized that I've said lots of mistakes in that video. So first of all, yeah, I said that I didn't bleed a lot, and yet for some reason there was blood dripping down my arm straight after I took the thing away. But anyway, I missed out that part. I just skipped over it for some reason. And the second part was the housing. Um, if they're going to change the law so that you have to pay 40% tax on anything you make on rental, that is completely ridiculous because houses are very expensive. And 1 year you could have a good tenant that pays every single month and you have no problem. Hence, if you're being charged 80%, if you're being charged a huge amount of tax, 40% taxes are extremely high amount for something that the government did absolutely nothing to do other than allow banks to just loan out huge amounts of money so that very few people can own a house unless you're willing to take huge risks and basically be a slave to the bank because you're renting out the property just to pay off the mortgage. I don't know what the government has done, but if they're going to try and charge 40% tax on rental properties, the government did absolutely nothing to deserve that, and that's absolutely disgusting because you could have your people are not making money on properties. Properties are expensive. I bought a property across the road, and I don't think it's had a new roof since it was built. It was built in the 70s, and I don't even think the roof's fine. It's not. It's not. I did have a check. I did have someone go up there and say that there was a couple of tiles that need to be changed, and I gave him, I don't know, £300-400 to fix it or whatever. I don't know what he did, and I think he fixed. There was something at the back. There was a leak at the back in the sort of. There was an extra bit, and that was a few hundred to fix. So I have had someone check the roof and look at it, but I've been told that you need to have a new roof every 30 or 40 years. Or no, maybe even less. 20, is it 20? Ow. 20 or 40, 20 to 30 years. And if that property is 50 years old, then I could have a £20,000 bill, and it might even be more than that. It might even be 30,000 because roofers are expensive. I might have a 20 or £30,000 bill to change that property. Now, if you're renting a property out and you have to give 40% of your rent money, you could have a good tenant all year, and then you could have them move out, and then you could have someone else come in, and they might refuse to pay the bills a couple of times. They might cause a huge amount of damage. They might start saying that, oh, there's a leak, or there's lots of things wrong with the property, and might start demanding that you fix it. And you might find that in the following year you don't just have, you haven't just made no rent. I know if you've spent £12,000 if it, and you've made 12,000 on doing it up. I understand that if you spent lots of money renovating it and you've made lots of money on rent, it's probably going to even out, and you could probably say, well, I've spent 12,000 fixing it and 12,000 renting out, hence you have no tax to pay that year because of it. But the thing about houses is that it doesn't work like that. Sometimes if something goes wrong, if there's a fire, or and the insurance won't pay out, or if there's a flood, or if there's big serious damages like a roof replacement, you might find that the work that you've spent actually took 3 or 4 years of rent. When we first bought the property, we spent £15,000 giving it a new kitchen, new flooring downstairs, new doors, had to get new frames on the doors as well. So we spent probably about £15,000. I did it quite cheaply. I spent £15,000 doing it up, and yeah, so for the first year we didn't charge tax. I declared that we made some money on the rent, but we also spent probably about the same amount of money for about 2 years. But yeah, if there's going to be a 40% tax, what happens if someone does find that they've made £12,000 on rent, but the new roof costs 30,000, hence they basically not only have not made anything that year, but they've also needs to take out money from the year before. And if it's supposed to be, if something like housing is, you've bought a house and you've spent huge amounts of money working and earning money to try and buy this house, and it's supposed to be a pension plan, and then you find that something like a roof needs to be replaced, you're going to find that not only can you not live off this pension money, you're also going to find that you just it's not profitable. If the government are going to start having, that's criminal to say that you have to pay 40% tax on all properties. And I guess I'm just assuming that this is not the truth. I don't know why he said it. Maybe he heard something and he it was just a theory of some stupid idiot in a some puppet person in the government, and they're just saying ridiculous stuff. I don't know what's going on. I don't trust the government. I don't believe that they know what they're doing, and it could just be a case of, like Anna from Young Turks. I'm happy to say that I want her to be my leader, or the leader of the world order, and I'm happy to give her promotion and help her. But at the end of the day, I don't actually agree with any. Not now. Before I used to agree with it. Now I do not agree with it because she's too in favor of saving lives without realizing that the lives that she's saving are people that are basically just living off others. They're living off others. They're not able to look after themselves. They're doing all sorts of horrible things to each other, and yeah, she's too busy thinking lives are more. It's more important that they're alive than dead, even though they might just be causing problems for other people. And so maybe what's going on with the government is you've got some puppet people that's just scaring people. But you're going to find that a lot of people are going to sell their property. My sister was wanting to buy a house. Now, I guess it might be different if you've got a massive mortgage. If she's got £150,000 mortgage on a one bedroom that she's going to take out to use as a deposit to try and buy to get out another 200,000. She's going to find that there is no profit. It's because every penny that she's making is going to go in the banks. But who is that going to help? That's only going to help the banks. If you're going to start having 40% profit, but you're allowed to take off money that you've used to buy a mortgage with, you don't have to pay money on that money. The money you make to pay off the mortgage, that doesn't count as taxable money because it's not money you've earned. But will the bankers that earn this interest, are they going to be taxed on this money? Are they going to be charged 40% because it's not capital gains tax for them because they don't own the house? The person who owns the house is the people. So I don't know. A rule like that might help the extremely wealthy who have managed to give out huge amounts of loans to people. The people who are owning the loans won't be able to make any money because they're paying off this mortgage, hence they're not making any profit on anything that they're making. But yeah, it negatively affects anyone who owns a property, and that's me. I own half of a property and I'm making 5,000, and the idea that you're going to try and claim that this can't be income tax, even though if I am able to live off it, I'm hoping every year that I'll be hoping if I am going to live off it, and you're just going to ignore me for another 10 years, I'll be hoping every single year that I don't have to that nothing happens to the roof, that there isn't a big gust of wind that comes and breaks the roof and it can cost me thousands of pounds to fix it. Why? Because thousands of pounds to fix it is basically all the money that I'm making for the whole year. And yeah, I don't want to have to go back to massage, and I don't know, but the problem with properties is you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know the sort of tenants, and so you can't just you can see it as income, but you shouldn't see it as capital gains, because you could just lose everything in a year's time. And part of if you lose everything in a few years' time, but that you've been making £10,000 a year on it, you might think, well, okay, I spent £100,000 on it. It's worth 200,000. Something has happened. I've got huge amounts of money to spend on it because it's broken in some ways. But if you've been making lots and lots of money over the years, then you won't feel so bad spending money on it. Now, if you haven't been making money, because if they add a stupid rule of paying 40% tax, even though there's no guarantee that the people in there are even going to pay the tax, you're just going to destroy. That's going to completely destroy the economy, because people are going to stop paying rent because they can't afford it because everything's too expensive, and the people who are charging rent are just going to say, what, I'm not making any money from this either because the government's stealing it all from me. Why should I manage this property? Why should I look after this property? Why should I make sure this person's paying rent if all the government is going to do is take almost all of it away from me? There's no point in that, People are just going to sell up houses, which, okay, that would bring the house market down. But selling houses takes a long time, and yeah, I don't know what's going on, but that's not something that one should do.